In this video segment, we're witnessing the incredible Mehdi Hasan take on Mike Huckabee, the U.S. ambassador to Israel, along with critiquing Netanyahu, Donald Trump, and various members of Netanyahu's team. As always, let's view this clip in its entirety, and I'll share my thoughts with you all at the conclusion.
I'm joined now by Mehdi Hasan, the founder and editor-in-chief at Zotero. Mehdi, great to have you back on set. I know you've been listening to both my interview with Ambassador Huckabee and with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. They put a lot on the record there in terms of their responses to all the criticism that's been coming. What was your response, first of all, to the interview with Ambassador Huckabee?
Well, he said a lot. I think he spoke to him for nearly an hour. A lot of things that weren't true. One thing that stood out to me was when he said he spent as much time with Netanyahu as he spent with his own wife, which explains probably a great deal why the Trump administration is so pro-Netanyahu and all in on everything Netanyahu's doing. One name you and him didn't really mention was Donald Trump. Trump has given Netanyahu, as we know, the green light to do the ethnic cleansing, to do the starvation, to do the killing. He recently said it's up to Israel to do whatever they want. But Mike Huckabee is a man who, just for your viewers watching some context, this is a man who said there's no such thing as a Palestinian. Says there's no such thing as the West Bank, says there's no such thing as a settlement, says there's no such thing as an occupation. He takes a very racist, dehumanizing view of Palestinians. He is a Christian nationalist, Christian Zionist who supports Israel for theological reasons. And in that interview with you, I just want to pick up a few things very quickly. The number of barefaced lies the ambassador told. He said multiple times Hamas is stealing the aid. As you pointed out, the New York Times spoke to multiple Israeli officials who say there is no evidence of systematic stealing of aid by Hamas. In fact, USAID, the US government's own aid department, did a study showing Hamas is not stealing the aid. The European Union did a study showing Hamas is not stealing the aid. The aid is being stolen. It's being stolen by gangs who are linked to Israel. So he's lying when he talks about Hamas stealing the aid. I was amazed to see him talk about beheaded babies and babies burned in ovens, which, as you know, Piers, because you got caught in that early on, was absolute bullshit put out by the Israelis. It's a complete lie. Not only did he lie about babies being burned in ovens, an ambassador of the United States at this point, 22 months later, telling that debunked hoax. He even claimed that it was done on video, which is not true. Show us the video. It doesn't exist. He also lied about the Israelis giving warnings to people before they bomb them. Every human rights group in the world says that's absolute BS. The Baka Cafe in Gaza City was bombed just last month. 30 people killed. A seaside cafe where they're having a children's birthday party. A boxer was killed. A sports star was killed. Children were killed. No warning given. They dropped a 500-pound bomb on a crowded seaside cafe. And then, of course, he lied about Anas al-Sharif and his crew. He said that the evidence points to them being Hamas, as you pointed out. No one who's looked at any of the evidence provided by Israel says that's evidence of Hamas. All he had was that, he was spotted taking a picture with the leadership of Hamas. So if you stand next to an accused terrorist or someone on the American terrorist watch list, that makes you a target, because I would point out Mike Pompeo is in a picture standing next to the Taliban. Donald Trump is in a recent picture standing next to the former leader of Al-Qaeda in Syria. Is that what we're now classifying as a justification for killing someone?
A lot to unpack there. I think one of the more interesting things that's come out in the last 24 hours are the words, once again, of the finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, saying that his plan, as a direct quote, his plan is for large parts of Gaza to remain under our control and sovereignty, and we can settle them. And that this has been, I know it's been a fear that you have expressed from day one of this, after October the 7th, that actually Israel and its hard right government ministers would move to try and take over Gaza and indeed the West Bank. You know, when you hear people like Smotrich, it's very hard to dispute that's exactly what he wants to do.
This particular interview is a prime example of when the facade completely drops, revealing the truth underneath for everyone to witness. You heard how Mehdi Hasan called it out. Plain as day, Mike Huckabee didn't merely distort the facts. He recycled debunked propaganda. Just consider it, almost 2 years down the line, and an American ambassador is still referencing beheaded babies and burned in ovens, falsehoods that journalists have dismantled and even Israeli officials have retracted. Yet he keeps promoting it, as if saying it over and over will make it true. And that tells you everything you need to know. This isn't about truth. It's about stoking fear and paving the way for heinous acts. Then there's the blatant assertion regarding Hamas supposedly stealing aid. Numerous investigations from the New York Times, USAID, and the European Union uncovered the same conclusion: there's no evidence of systematic theft by Hamas. The real issue? Aid is being seized by gangs, many with ties to Israel, but Huckabee conveniently omits that because it doesn't mesh with the narrative he's there to push. He counts on most people not doing their homework, so he lies boldly. And note how comfortably he justifies the killing of journalists. Just a photograph with someone affiliated with Hamas is suddenly proof? If that's the bar we're setting, then how do we interpret the images of Donald Trump with Taliban leaders? Or Mike Pompeo with extremists? Does that mark them as targets? Absolutely not. It's selective reasoning intended only to justify murder when the victims are Palestinian. And this line, Israel always gives warnings, has been thoroughly discredited by every credible human rights organization. The example Mehdi shared of the seaside cafe, bombed without warning during a child's birthday party, illustrates the point perfectly. Entire families wiped out, a boxer killed, a sports figure lost, children slaughtered, and not a single word of accountability. They just move on to the next excuse. What deeply unsettles me, though, are Bezalel Smotrich's words. There's no pretense anymore. He clearly states that Gaza should stay under Israeli control and be resettled. That isn't security or self-defense. It's outright colonization. It's the exact nightmare people have been articulating since October 7th, now openly confirmed by the Israeli finance minister. Yet U.S. officials, so-called ambassadors, appear on TV parroting falsehoods while the truth is glaringly obvious. This is about seizing land, about ethnic cleansing, about denying a people their humanity. That's why commentary from Mehdi is crucial. He doesn't allow them to rewrite history in the moment. He doesn't let them drown reality in propaganda. We need more of that, because unchallenged lies lead to more destruction. So I'll hand it over to you guys. What did you think of Huckabee's display here? Was it mere ignorance, or was it intentional deceit? Share your opinions in the comments. While you're there, hit the like button to help the algorithm, subscribe if you're new, and let's keep countering the falsehoods, because doing nothing makes us complicit. Now let's return to the video.
It's very hard to dispute that this is a genocide and this is ethnic cleansing. I mean, they have said this on the record time and time again. US officials can come and dress this all up and talk about Hamas, but they've made it clear it's not about Hamas. It's about making Gaza Jewish again. These are their words. As you mentioned, Smotrich has said this, Ben-Gvir has said this, Eliyahu, the heritage minister, just said recently, we're wiping out Gaza. We're going to make it Jewish again. Everyone's going to have to leave. Donald Trump himself, by the way, Mike Huckabee's boss, has said everyone has to leave and they can't come back, is what he said to Fox in one interview. Huckabee, as I mentioned, is a Christian Zionist. He is a hardcore evangelical who, if you had asked him about that, would probably support that stuff. I mean, his worldview, messianic worldview, is based on all of the Jews coming together in the Holy Land, taking all the land, and then Jesus comes back. I mean, that's not something they hide. In fact, Huckabee, Piers, was at an illegal West Bank settlement, Shiloh, in May, and he visited 5 heifers, 5 red cows, sent from Texas, I believe, which I believe is part of the prediction, the prophecy for rebuilding the temple and bringing back the Jewish Messiah. I mean, this is the kind of circles he moves in. These are the kind of beliefs and views he shares. And it's very worrying that Donald Trump, we know, Piers, you and I, is not a religious man. He's not a big Christian, but he's filled his administration with these kind of messianic folks, these Christian evangelicals who say Israel right or wrong. You've got the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, just went to Israel a few days ago, I think, and he visited an illegal West Bank settlement. You didn't get a chance to talk about the West Bank with Huckabee, which he believes is not occupied. You have 2 American citizens, Piers, killed in the West Bank in the last 30 days by settlers. Mike Huckabee is the American ambassador to Israel, as he proudly told. He said, I'm America's ambassador to Israel. What's he done for them? They're American citizens. Isn't that the job of the U.S. ambassador to Israel, to protect American citizens in that country or in occupied territories by that country?
Yeah, listen, I think the aggressive expansion of settlements in the West Bank is a crime. I made no pretense of that since they've been doing this throughout the last 2 years. What did you make of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation spokesman interview? Because there's a lot of misinformation being thrown around about the UN and the way they operated the food. That, as I said to the ambassador, and as you rightly picked up on, the New York Times did an extensive report which said that there was no evidence of systematic theft by Hamas. However, I'm under no illusion that, of course, Hamas would probably try and take as much as it could get its hands on, and I would assume they've been doing that reasonably regularly. There was just no evidence of a systematic thieving of all the UN food. Do you think the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is a force for good in Gaza because it's getting some food to Gazans, or do you think it's not a force for good?
So in terms of getting food to Gazans, let's just debunk something both the GHF guy and Huckabee said to you. They keep saying 110 million meals. That's since the end of May. We are in the beginning of August. When you do the maths, or math here in the US, you need, for 3 meals a day, right, for 2 million people, you need over 400 million meals in that time space. By the way, these are meals that have no water, no fuel. So you get the food, you can't cook them. You don't, how are you supposed to cook them? What are you supposed to drink with them? You don't get any water or fuel from the GHF. Just these prepackaged meals. And it's enough meals to cover, as they say, 110 million meals. But what you actually need are 400 million meals. So really, they've only provided a quarter of as much food as the people need and without any water or fuel. So they're just selective cherry picking of stats without any context. In terms of your question, let me answer it directly. No, it's not a force for good. It is a force for evil. And that is not a word I use lightly, Piers. I'm not one of these people who throws around evil all the time. But what we have seen in the last few weeks at these GHF sites is evil. You are seeing people, hungry people, coming for food, starved by Israel. And then when they come to the sites that they're told to come to get the food, they are then shot at and killed, right? Killed, hundreds of them. And by the way, again, they keep saying, well, we don't know what happened, misinformation. Actually, no, The Guardian just did an investigation over the weekend. People can go read it. Based on 30 different videos, they've identified Israeli gunfire at Palestinians at these sites. We have Israeli soldiers telling Haaretz we were told to fire on people at the aid sites. We have American contractors who told the Associated Press, we saw our colleagues opening fire, live ammunition on Palestinians. How evil do you have to be to have starve people and then tell them to come get aid in the middle of a war zone? These GHF sites are in the middle of a war zone, and then shoot and kill them as they come to get the aid. I mean, that is, you think about Rwanda, you think about the Balkans, you think about the worst genocides in the last 50, 60, 70 years. This is up there with them, if not beyond. It's the most evil thing I have seen in my life in recent years.
This example perfectly illustrates why I constantly refer to Mehdi Hasan as one of the most insightful voices in the media landscape today. He's not one to rely on catchy one-liners alone. He presents evidence, undeniable facts, and context that can't simply be ignored. What really caught my attention in this particular segment wasn't just the misleading narratives from Huckabee and his peers, but how Mehdi systematically debunked them with precision. He outlined that the situation has moved beyond Hamas. Israeli officials are bluntly stating their intentions: we're eradicating Gaza. We will restore it as Jewish territory. Everyone must vacate. These are not my interpretations, nor are they media biases. They are their actual statements. What makes this so terrifying is that we're witnessing real-time acts of genocide and ethnic cleansing while Western leaders camouflage it with polished statements and distractions. What's even more alarming is that it's not just about Netanyahu and his hard-right government. Donald Trump, who Huckabee supports, has echoed the same sentiments: Palestinians must leave and never return. Combine this with the Christian Zionist beliefs that Huckabee endorses. The idea that Israel must reclaim all lands to fulfill a prophecy about the Messiah, and suddenly the peril of this combination becomes clear. This is politics enmeshed with messianic fervor, costing ordinary Palestinians their lives. And let's not overlook what Mehdi uncovered about the so-called humanitarian aid. We've all heard the claims: 110 million meals delivered. Sounds reassuring until you break it down. In that duration, 2 million people were actually in need of 400 million meals. Factor in the absence of water and fuel. You can't cook, you can't drink, you can't live. And to make matters worse, those desperate enough to seek aid end up getting shot at, executed while seeking sustenance. Reflect on how malevolent that is. You starve people, then bait them with the promise of aid, only to fire upon them. Mehdi likened it to Rwanda and the Balkans, and he's correct. This is more than a catastrophe, it's one of the most horrific offenses of our time. Yet, observe how Piers Morgan navigates these discussions. With Israeli or conservative guests, he handles them with kid gloves. But when it's someone from the left, he suddenly turns combative. The only exception is Mehdi Hasan, because Piers knows that if he attempts his typical tactics, he risks being found out. And badly at that. Mehdi has bested him before, and it's evident Piers moves with caution. For me, this wasn't merely about facts. It was about unmasking the blatant double standards in the narratives being fed to us. Gaza is being suffocated. The West Bank is being dismantled bit by bit. International laws are being disregarded. And those propagating this want us to believe it's all ordinary, all warranted. But we're not oblivious. We're not unwise. And thanks to figures like Mehdi, the truth is piercing through the fog of propaganda. What do you think, though? Are more people beginning to see the reality of the situation, or is the propaganda machine still too overpowering? Share your thoughts below. I'm genuinely interested in your viewpoints. While you're at it, give a like for the algorithm. And if you're a newcomer, subscribe. Believe me, we're going to keep delving into this. Because to remain silent now isn't merely being timid, it's being complicit.